Hey, Prestige Heads, thank you for joining us. I'm
Oh, there's
sitting
some
at a
people already
desk.
here. Excellent.
Yeah, but people were waiting all day for this, Derek. They've
I'm
organized their
sure. Yeah. Of
lives
course.
around this live stream. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This is going to be the first few times we do this. It's going to be a little, I like to say punk rock or DIY. I'm kind of looking like Walter Cronkite. Um, but I think that that's what everyone should be expecting. Derek, are you there?
Okay. Yeah. You
You
said to
close.
post the thing to
Okay,
Twitter,
cool.
so I just did that. I think.
All right, awesome. Because you're not, I don't see you on my screen, but I guess this is the
Uh,
magic of live streaming. But you can
that's
see me.
okay. Yeah.
Hello. All right, cool. Well, that's all. That's really the only thing that matters. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us.
That's debatable.
We are going to start doing these a bit more formally. We want to start doing about one a week. And this is going to be the first of hopefully ones that are going to be more often, where we're going to be talking about the various things that are going on in the world. Hopefully, provide more of a on the ground, sort of off the cuff response. So thank you all for joining us. And Derek, I think the first thing to talk about is we are live maxing. That is absolutely correct. We are live maxing.
Oh God.
Um,
No,
so
we're not. We're not live
no,
maxing.
we are definitely live maxing.
We are
We're
not doing
absolutely
that. I
no, we're
will
live maxing.
leave if we're live maxing.
We're not nogging, but we're maxing. By the way, my students love when I use Gen Z terms. You know, when I take
Do
a
they?
break, they do. I
You
say we
should
need
do
to.
that with them and spare me. How's that?
Uh, I tell them that we need to recharge our auras when we're doing a break and
Great.
all of
Great.
that good stuff. Um, but I think maybe the first thing to talk about, obviously, is it's on everyone's mind, which is Iran and what the hell is going on with Iran. So it's been difficult to
Peace in
keep
our
track.
time is what's going on.
Well, naturally, we already knew that, but it's just difficult to keep a track of because Trump is just going back and forth every 2 seconds, and I don't know what he's doing. So, Derek, what precisely is going on? What's the
I don't know why
latest
you
stuff?
assume I know because,
Well, you've got sources in the White House, don't you,
yeah, of
that are
course.
constantly texting you from.
Um, yeah, so I mean, we're back to like, there's going to be a peace deal any minute now. I hope everybody shorted the oil market this morning because that's where we're at. Um, I mean, it did all start, it started yesterday, I guess, when Trump, after 48 supremely ineffective hours, decided to, or was 50, I guess, about 50 hours of his Project Freedom thing to reopen traffic in the Strait of Hormuz gave up. Uh, like it didn't work, and there was fighting. I mean, there was actual shooting that went on as a result of this mess of an operation. And now uh, NBC reported this evening that apparently Saudi Arabia said, you have to stop this. We're not going to let you use our air bases or our military facilities to perpetuate this operation, which is seems to be quite half-assed. And so he stopped. Made a big deal when he announced on social media that he wasn't doing it. We weren't doing Project Freedom anymore. That there was some big peace initiative in the works, and the Pakistanis and everybody had asked him to magnanimously stop this very successful, tremendously successful operation. And that was it until Wednesday morning when Barack Ravid, who's the guy who always gets fed these
He always
stories,
gets scoops. He's getting
we
scoops,
should
Derek.
talk about him. That's an interesting
Yeah, it's
topic
a
of conversation.
well, yeah. I mean,
Um,
he's plugged in. He's just basically literally a stenographer of power, but it doesn't mean
he's a
he's wrong. Yeah,
stenographer.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it does. It means that
Literally,
he's wrong a lot. Like he's
well,
predicted. I think
certainly analytically.
somebody made a joke that he's predicted 7 of the last 0 U.S. Iranian peace deals on Twitter, which was good joke. No, I mean he did led the day with a story about there's some deal that's imminent, and then that got followed up by a number of other outlets. As far as I can
There
tell,
we
the
go.
big
Better.
breakthrough is that uh, the Trump administration has decided to adopt the framework that the Iranians have been pushing for weeks now, which is to just do a quick one-page memorandum of understanding and reopen the strait, end the blockade,
And
and
then so
then we'll
this
talk about
lead
everything
to, yeah.
else. It's supposed to be a 30-day window to negotiate all the meaty stuff on the nuclear program and whatever else. I mean, the nuclear program seems to be the big focus, but the Iranians are going to have things that they want too, guarantees that they're not going to be. I mean, to the
So
extent you can get
yeah.
one.
So
Um, so I'm,
basically
but
where we
this is where
were,
we're
yeah.
at.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a draft or several drafts apparently of a 14 point one page memo that are circulating, and they're trying to put them into one draft that's acceptable to everybody. At which point the war will be sort of over,
Right. So this is the
and then
question.
they'll
Is this just going
negotiate.
to be just so this is just going to be so he looks like he's actually going to be able to do an escape hatch here before he invades Cuba or releases more files
I
about aliens or Jeffrey
Yeah, I
Epstein's
mean,
suicide
Cuba, I
note.
think is next in line, but
Yeah, I mean, but
I
this
mean,
was
I don't know.
absolutely,
Like,
yeah,
it
absolutely ridiculous.
if
Yeah.
if they do this and then 30 days from now they haven't resolved anything, which they're not going to, like
Well,
they've
they're
been at
not
this
going to
for
resolve the
years.
nuclear stuff. Yeah.
And there's been some movement on the nuclear stuff. As we have talked about before, they're now off of this idea that Iran must never enrich uranium again, and they're basically haggling over how long of a moratorium the Iranians would accept. Um, but so there's been some movement. Trump even like yesterday sounded like he was changing drastically changing his position on Iran's missile program, which is the other thing here. They want the Iranians to get rid of their missiles, so they can't defend themselves against basically the Israelis. Um, and it's been one of the big things here, like why we went to war. He got asked about it yesterday and said, "Well, I mean, they have to have some missiles. We can't take all their missiles away. They have to." Like he's just waffling
Right.
on
So
that,
he's
which
walking back
is a
everything. Yeah.
real
Because this
a
is,
real non-starter for the
well,
Iranians. Like they won't accept
yeah.
anything on their
Well,
missile program.
Derek, do you think that it's funny? I was teaching about Vietnam today, and the Logaval book, "Choosing War," and of course, his argument is one of the major reasons the U.S. escalated there was for domestic political reasons. But it just seems to me like the Republicans are about to get trounced in the midterms, and we're transforming. I mean, the era of Trump. It does feel like it's coming to a close. I don't know. What do you feel about this? He does seem increasingly weak. He does seem obsessed with the ballroom. This is not to say that our
He
politics
doesn't
are going to
like
be reinvigorated in any way, but like he
No,
just
but like
doesn't
that's the
care
shit he
anymore.
likes.
Yeah,
He likes to talk
yeah.
about the ballroom. He likes to talk about the triumphal arch that he's got. I don't know what triumph he's gonna, give himself, but
Well, the
the big
Maduro.
arch and like, yeah, to talk about that stuff. He doesn't like this. Like he was part of the reason we got the ceasefire is because he was bored with the war. It wasn't doing what he wanted it to do. It wasn't going the way he wanted it to go. He was frustrated and bored. So we did the ceasefire. Part of the reason I think why we had to try this Project Freedom thing and almost start the war again was that he was bored with the ceasefire, because the
Yeah,
ceasefire wasn't doing anything for him. He's changing the channel and everybody's, nothing on TV is going the way he wants it to go. So I mean, he was going to start the war again. That didn't work. It clearly
right.
wasn't going to work. And so now there's this opening again because they've moved on the 30-day, the one page memorandum 30-day thing. They've moved on maybe on missiles. There may be an opening here to at least end the war. There's also this war powers thing, which people seem to think is a big deal. I don't. I mean, they weren't going to lose a war powers vote in Congress, but I think the debate over the war powers resolution, if it came up, would have been embarrassing for them because it would have reminded people how long this fucking thing has been going on, and just driven home the point that you're paying $4.50 at the pump for
I wish it was
nothing.
450 in Seattle. I saw 620.
Oh,
It's
I mean,
like,
yeah, like
yeah,
I'm
maybe in
talking
the
about
suburbs
I'm talking
of,
about in the real America, not in the coastal
yeah,
elite
sure.
areas.
Derek, did you put
Um,
triple parentheses around coastal elite there? I heard it in your voice. Well, I mean, someone asked a pretty good question, and this is something that I've been considering about whether Trump is going to be able to basically compromise before real grievous economic effects start coming up. And I mean, this is the real big question. Are we past the, it seems like there's going to be some economic effect no matter what, even if he
oh yeah,
started
I
it,
mean
stopped it
there's
today
already.
and tomorrow, that there's just going to be no chance that there's not. But it does seem like we're entering some sort of stagflation period. Um, that obviously inflation has been ridiculous. Everyone here, unless they've been receiving what 7% raises every year, has been receiving a pay cut. The purchasing power parity of people has gone down. Oil, even if we don't get most of our oil from the Middle East, it obviously is clearly part of the production process. So we're going to have consumer goods continue to go up. And so it does seem like we're actually entering a stagflationary cycle, which is in effect essentially reaching the moment in capitalism where there's a lack of demand, and there's been a lack of demand. People have argued for 50 years. That's finally coming home to roost, given that the United States isn't able to just quantitatively ease its way out of every situation. So even if he ends it tomorrow, it does seem like we're approaching a crisis point. But I've been thinking that for years, and I think our entire lives have been from one crisis point to another crisis point. But it just the train never stops. Is it just going to be able to keep going? I mean,
I mean
what do
the
you what do
stuff
you
like
think?
the gas prices and all of this stuff, like that's not gonna resolve itself until,
For a
if
while,
they stop the war today, it wouldn't resolve itself probably until the end of the year at least.
right?
I mean, you've got to give shipping companies shipping companies and insurers need to feel reassured that there's not going to be a return to violence. You have to sort out whatever it is the Iranians think that they can get out of the Strait of Hormuz, out of what they've demonstrated here, which I don't think they can get what they are hoping to get, which is tolling ships going through on a constant basis. But you have to negotiate that, like you have to sort that out at this point. You have to convince again the shipping companies that the mine situation's been taken care of, which is going to take a while.
If it
And
ever
just in
fully resolves,
general,
I
like if it
mean,
ever fully resolved, right? So I mean that just covers like the actual transit of ships through the strait. Then you have to think about the facilities that have been damaged, the production shutdowns that have already
right.
taken place, and how long it's going to be to take to bring oil refineries and pumping stations back online. There's a lot of stuff here that just can't be done overnight. So yeah, I mean we're in for a rocky few
Well,
months,
and
and but I wasn't thinking about like a full blown economic meltdown until I saw Kevin Hassett, who I guess is the director of the National Economic Council, who was on Fox Business, I think this morning, bragging about how high credit card spending has been. Like this is a good sign for the economy. Like that doesn't mean we're in a credit bubble again that's going to explode and take everybody down with them again.
well, no one's going to pay
I
it
just
back. I mean, yeah, and the
I mean,
student loan crisis, the
he
debt
seems so
crisis. Yeah.
excited about this. He's like, the economy is going great. Consumers are spending so much on gasoline, but also they're running up their credit card bills to buy others. Like, what? I mean, yeah, that really made me think. Oh, okay, like we're really in for it.
We're entering exciting times. And the other big thing that I've been thinking about in relation to Iran is obviously the, and this is pretty interesting because I think this might be the only time in recent history that this has been tested, which is just a total failure of the basing system. The basing system is supposed to
Oh,
serve as deterrent
yeah,
and threat, and like Iran just took them out so easily, which obviously I don't know if you would call their drones offense or defense in this obvious era. The offense defense balance. It's very different than World War
it
One,
doesn't.
when it
Yeah,
was pretty clear who was on the offense and who was the defense. So I mean, to some degree, that term doesn't really make sense in the 21st century, but it does show the utility of a lot of very cheap drones. and missiles that could not, I guess, not very cheap, but relatively cheap, that could just attack the basing structure. And I think this raises questions about the United States' global posture, generally speaking, particularly vis-a-vis China. Like if I'm China and I'm looking at the total demolition of the Middle Eastern basing structure effectively of the United States, like this would accelerate various plans for potential reunification or potential displacement of hegemony. That's what I'm thinking when I look at this. But I'm curious about your opinion on that issue of how this is to some degree revealed the United States as something of a paper tiger, at least in its global strategic posture vis-a-vis basing, and how that might affect other world regions.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like just on the offensive defensive thing, like Marco Rubio said, I think yesterday that the U.S. military was engaged in defensive operations to defend its blockade of Iran, which is inherently an act of war, like an offensive military. Like it just doesn't mean anything. It's such a bullshit distinction. But yeah, I mean, the bases were abandoned so quickly and so thoroughly. Like the Washington Post did a thing on this today that the Iranians hit like 228 targets on U.S. military bases in the region over the course of the war, and they had to get that information from Iranian satellite imagery because, of course, the Pentagon forced Planet Labs and Ventor or whatever the other big satellite imagery company is to stop publishing satellite images in the Middle East.
Yeah, who
Just
knows
to,
what actually went on? Think of all the
I mean,
Burger
it's
Kings destroyed,
ridiculous. Yeah.
all the Subways
Uh,
and Pizza Huts on those bases. It's
but
just so
like
grim that that's
they
where we
didn't
feed
serve as
troops
deterrents. They served as
at
targets. Like
all.
that was all they
Right,
were.
precisely, right. And that has to do, I think, with the cheapness of these technologies. And this is
Yeah.
where I think the Ukraine war is really interesting. I really do think it accelerated drone technology, military drone technology, like by leaps and bounds, which is obviously what always happens when you're talking about wartime and military technology. But that will not redound to the United States' benefit. And there's kind of an irony here, I think, that it may very well turn out to be, from a historical perspective, that the United States' support of Ukraine in its after Russia invaded, will have accelerated the production and development of a technology that will effectively undermine the strategic posture the United States decided to take after World War II. So, like Biden's whole thing about like defending the liberal
Yeah.
international order, particularly in
The
Ukraine,
arsenal of democracy.
yeah, is going to undermine it. I mean,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is really one of the ironies of history, but, like, if you're China and let's say you had a Taiwan 2040 plan, why is that not a 2030 plan at this point? It just seems like something like that is going to be a natural outcome of this. Obviously, Japan is and South Korea, right? The immovable aircraft carriers, however you wanna talk about them. But, I mean, this has really revealed American weakness
But
in a
I think
significant
it's
way.
also like this and Ukraine have revealed how difficult it is for a big power, big regional power to invade or take over or have its way with a smaller, less powerful state in this age. And the lesson that China could take away from both of these conflicts could just as easily be like, look at what Ukraine has done to, uh, stop the Russians in their tracks, or look at what the Iranians were able to do with some cheap drones and missiles to thwart the U.S. military, and maybe Taiwan's capable of the same type of defense. Now, the U.S. has been force feeding Taiwan weapons that it doesn't need that wouldn't do it any good in a conflict with China for decades now. So maybe Taiwan's not ready for that type of conflict, but even so, I think there's more takeaways that China could have here than just U.S. weakness.
Right, and I remember reading, and tell me if I'm wrong, that China plans to have, like, 1 billion drones or something along those lines, so that it would then you now it reminds you of that Simpsons episode. Like your job will be to control the robot warriors of the future. Um, and I think we could be seeing stuff like that as well, like these just gigantic drone forces going off against each other in this new battlefield, which is
Well, that's
pretty
supposed to be. I mean, isn't
scary.
that supposed to be like the sixth generation fighter
Right.
concept? Is you have planes controlling like the hubs of these drone swarms. Yeah, that seems pretty plausible. The interesting thing is that China's probably going to beat the U.S. to having a sixth generation fighter. So
Well, there's no question that like uh, Ch- China essentially, the way I use the opportunity of COVID to basically leap ahead the United States in energy technology, and basically you need to be the energy hegemon in order to dominate these areas. So it does seem like the United States is going to be one of two superpowers going forward, and who knows? In several decades, it might very well be weaker, relatively speaking, than China. I mean, to what degree does China have its own problems, significant problems? To what degree is it ever going to be able to actually militarily modernize? That I don't know. It's not a total black box, but it's a bit of a black box, that country. Um, but yeah, I think we're like very heavy into the moment of transition, and Biden's uh, term, I think, will be viewed as the dead cat bounce of the liberal international order. For people who don't know
yeah,
that term, I think it's an old stock term where, stocks go down again, down, and then they might seem to bounce back up, but then that's really just the dead cat bounce. Like you throw a dead cat off, it hits the ground, it goes up slightly before going down. I think the Biden administration might be the dead cat bounce. And if we didn't live in a gerontocracy, obviously, I think things might have been proceeding in a different direction. But I think 2028 is going to be a big turning point. I think that it's going to be very, very different going forward,
I
to
mean,
say the least.
if Trump just leaves wreckage behind him, then it's an opportunity for somebody to come in and rebuild or build in a different way. But you have to actually have somebody who's capable of thinking about things in a kind of off the conventional wisdom path. And I don't see anybody running who really strikes me as being able to do that.
Well, I mean, as long as Jake Sullivan is part of their team, then
Yeah,
I'm happy. I mean, this is also the
that
other question, like
that
who
new
is the.
that like foreign policy thing that he and Ben Rhodes are doing. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
To,
there's just I mean the institutions of the Democratic Party just don't support any interesting thinking on this
right.
whatsoever. So there's just this basically atavistic understanding of what the United States is able to do in the world, and it's just very frustrating. It's just like lazy thinking, which I think represents a general ossification not only of the Democratic Party but basically the American political system. Because I think the second Trump is gone, whether he when he leaves office or shuffles off this mortal coil, what is the Republican Party without him? It's essentially nothing. It's a totally hollow shell. So we exist in a moment where both parties are really hollow, and
Yeah.
aren't investing in interesting new thinking whatsoever. And we haven't had a crisis like the Great Depression or World War II that forced new thinking onto people. We instead have slow moving climate crisis, which it may be faster than we thought, but it's still pretty slow. And it's just annoying to have to live through this moment of total ossification where it feels like nothing could absolutely get done.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with any of that. Like, what's going to come out of this? Are we going to get, which flavor of let's go back to the old ways are
Right.
we going to get? Like, it just doesn't seem like there's anything
Because they're not
interesting from either
investing
party.
in new types of thinking. Derek, no one's approached us, for example, for our amazing advice or to support this podcast.
Oh,
And I don't
imagine
know. I don't
the
watch the
nerve of
yeah.
these people.
I don't watch the Pod Save guys, but like they still seem to me speak in the scripts of the old order, where it just seems like absolutely pointless. But the fact that Hassan is getting such play is, I guess, a good sign that people are worried enough about him to talk about it. I mean, he genuinely is anti-imperialist.
But they're worried
Maybe
about
that
him in
does
like a
augur something.
barbarian storming the gates way. Like they're not worried about like they don't want to respond to him on an ideological level. They just want to label him
Right,
an anti-Semite and you know and throw it out. That's
right,
the only place that there's been any movement is on Israel, and it's like you
right.
know it
That's
took
real movement, though. That's
two and
real
a half
movement.
years of watching them commit a genocide in Gaza for anybody to say, you know, maybe we shouldn't just give them weapons anymore. We should make them buy the weapons. Like I don't know, like that's just not fast enough to you're not going to make it if it takes you that long to come around.
Yeah, and I think the United States has weakened its position by not investing in this new type of thinking. I mean, you would have never even obviously the Iran war, I think, is to a large degree linked to Trump's own personality. Many people have said this, but he clearly just thought he was going to do a repeat of Venezuela, which I think raises the stakes for Cuba because it's much more likely you'll be able to do that in Cuba than you're able to do it in Iran. We might see sort of a re-hemisphering of Trumpian foreign policy after this. Although, Derek, I still think the United States is going to dominate the Middle East regardless of this. But do you think that's naive? Do you think it's just going to be Iran, Israel, and Saudi, and the United States isn't going to be influential there? Because to me, even despite this, the United States is still going to maintain a serious presence in the Middle East. But what are your thoughts on that? And then maybe we might call it there.
Well, I mean, two of those three are U.S. still U.S.
Clients,
hostages,
yeah,
basically clients.
right,
So
right.
I don't until you sever those relationships somehow, like there's not going to be a U.S. withdrawal, and I don't see any. I mean, you know, the only other competitor here is China, and I maintain, you know, we've said this, and I've said this so many times at this point, I'm repeating myself, but why would Xi Jinping, looking at all the shit, all the folly that the U.S. involvement in the Middle East has brought, you know, over the last 30 years, why would he be eager to jump into that? Like he's got to maintain relationships, business relationships, energy relationships, but as long as the U.S. is willing to, you know, kind of, or is you know demanding that it play the role of like final arbiter in the region and you know hegemon, like why would you challenge them on that? Just you know let them do it. Like you know when your enemy
There's no
is
interest in doing
drowning,
that.
throw him an anchor or throw him
Yeah.
an anchor.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally right. And we just did a really interesting interview today that is probably going to be the bonus, not this week, but the following week, where we go, it's going to be like a mega episode on China. And I think China has more pressing concerns regarding its own regional power. And despite things like brokering the Saudi Iranian deal in 2023, I just don't, why would I think they're going to continue to quote unquote seed the region, which is going to be very strange for how Americans, because I don't think Americans understand, the American foreign policy elite, to be specific, understands what to do with a superpower that doesn't have essentially an ideological project to expand its model of political economy. So I think it's going to be very strange, and particularly when no one is investing in new type of thinking, that the only quote unquote younger people are just so establishmentarian that they essentially reach their positions, like a Sullivan, to a lesser degree of Rhodes, um, by just repeating the old knowledge. I think is does not augur well for the future of the world or the
Right.
United States as a whole.
Yeah, I think uh, that's probably true. Somebody mentioned Turkey in the chat here, and I think the next big challenge is going to be when the Israelis decide they want to go to war with Turkey, what the U.S.
Right.
does. That'll be
Which would be
great.
a
Yeah.
wild situation. So
Um,
before we
yeah.
go, just wanna remind everyone about Mark's Prestige, marksprestigepod.com. For people who just made it, we're going to be doing these probably once a week at this time, Wednesday, 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST. It's going to maybe be a little more formal going forward. But we like doing this, just kind of talking. We've got some really fun bonus episodes coming up. I think some really good ones, if I do say so myself. So keep your eye out for that. And as always, as I like to say, keep on rocking into free world. Thanks for doing this with me, Derek.
Thanks, guys. All right.